Hello, students. I hope you have understood the first two chapters of Beehive and Movements from Literature section. And now, today, we are going to start with the poetry sections from Beehive book. And let's begin with the first poem, that is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Now, before I begin with the explanation, let me just briefly tell you about Robert Frost was an American poet, but most of his work was published in England before it published in America. And he was very much liked by people and he has received many awards and prizes. He received Pulitzer Prize for poetry and he became, one of America's rare public literary figures. And he received gold medal in 1960 for his poetic work, and he is also considered as the voice of America. His poems begin in delight and in wisdom. Now, as you know, the name of the poem, Road Not Taken, and you can see that the poet is standing on a road where it is being diverged into two roads. Begin with the first stanza. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. So, what happened, students? Once the poet was walking down a road, and then there was a diversion. There were two different paths, and he had to choose one out of them. Obviously, you can't travel on both the roads in one go. So the poet says that as he was one person, he could not travel on one road. He has to travel only on one road. He can't choose both. So he had to choose one out of these two roads. Now, what the poet is saying? Yellow wood means a forest with leaves which are wearing out and they have turned yellow in color. The fresh leaves are green in color, but when the leaves are about to wear, they turn yellow. You all know this. That also means that it's a season of autumn. Now, it represents a world which is full of people, where people have been living for many years. Now, what happened? The poet kept standing there and looked at the path very carefully as far as he could see it. The fourth line. And looked down one as far as I could. Because when we have to choose a thing, we need to be very careful. We take time to think, to decide that what we have to do. So, what happened? Before taking the path, he wanted to know how it was. Was it suitable for him or no? He was able to see the path till from where it curved, after which it was covered with trees and was hidden. That means he could be able to see at, to a particular point. After that, he was not able to see. And what he observed that it was covered with trees and was hidden. He couldn't know what is lying after that. It happens, students, in our life also. When we have choices, we have alternatives, but we have to choose only one out of them. We take time to think about the pros and cons, whether it is suitable for us or not, and only then we take a decision on what path we should choose. Now, moving on to stanza 2, then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the passing there had borne them really about the same. Now, what happened? Here, the meaning of fair is like, as good as the other one. So, what happened? The poet kept on looking at one path for a long time to check if it is the right path for him or not. And then he decided and started walking on another path because he felt, as he's saying, as fair, he felt that the both paths were equally good. He says, just as fair so. He felt that both paths were equally good and started walking on one of them. But he also adds that maybe he felt that the path was better for him. That is why he chose that. Somewhere he felt that the path that he has chosen is better for him. Because the reason that he has given is, as it had grass on it, which means that it was unused. That means he didn't want to take that path which most of the people have taken. And how it is being shown that it has taken, because there were two paths. On one path, there were leaves. That means because if people are walking on that leaves, the leaves will move away. But here, he chose that which many people didn't take. It was unused. It has grass on it. It has not many people had walked on this path earlier, and that is why this path was grassy. Because when we walk on the road and if there is grass, so when many people walk on that road, what happens? The grass is worn out. So here he chose that path where grass was there, and that shows that it was less used and wanted where. What does it mean, students? Means that it was not walked over by many people. It was not used by many people. So he wanted to, just discover that what is in that road. After he walked on the path for some distance, he realized that both the paths had been worn out the same way. Both the paths were similar and worn out. Even in our life, students, we take any path or option, but all of them have the same benefits, disadvantages, problems, challenges, and we must face them. We think that we are choosing a better option, but it is not that way. So what happens, like at the end, though he thought that let me see what is in that wood, but at the end when he reached there, he saw that they both of them were almost really the same. Now moving on, the third stanza. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. So, students, now what happened? The poet says that both the paths were similar that morning. The time is moving, and both had leaves on them, and no one had stepped on them as they were still green in color. The grass was still green in color, so that means no one had moved on them. He decided that that day he would take one path and keep the other path for another day. Now, students, you see that he was feeling that he could have taken the other path, so he thought that maybe someday I'll come back and try the other path which he left. Although he knew that one way leads on to another way, and this happens in our lives also. If we are moving on one path, we will find another path, and then if we'll start moving on that path, we'll see another path. So life keeps on moving, and he knew that he could not go back on the choice that he made. Similarly, even in our life, once we choose an option, we must keep on moving ahead with that option, and we never get a chance to come back. And that is why, the poet is saying, I doubt it. He has doubt over there because he is not sure whether he will ever come back. And maybe the poet is trying to say that, in life also, we never get a chance to come back and take the other option that we had left earlier, because then we start moving in that path and then we are accustomed to all the things that are coming on in that path only. So here the poet has feelings of doubt, though he wanted to come back, but he had doubts in his mind whether he'll come back or not. Now moving on to the last stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now he says sigh means when you take a deep breath. He says that in the future he will take a deep breath, after many years, ages and ages, as he's saying, and say that once upon a time he had reached such a point in life that there were two options for him, and he traveled on that road which had been traveled upon by lesser number of people. Means he took that path which was chosen by less number of people, and he didn't take the common path which was used by many people. And that decision of his decided his future. What decision we take in our earlier life, that decides our future, that we are what we are going to become, how we are going to become in our future. So your decisions in your earlier life, children, makes all the difference. So similarly, in future, when you grow up, then you will say that once upon a time when you were young, you had two options. The choice that you made you what you become of it. This is a very strong message, for all the students, that you should be wise and be careful when making choices out of the options that you have in your life, because your future depends on the choice that you make today. So, students, I guess for at this age, this poem means a lot for you, and you should take it very seriously to decide upon your future, because this is the time when you can put all your efforts in your studies, in your well being, and that only will decide your future. The decision that you will take today will make your future good or bad. So, I guess it's a very nice poem, especially for students, and I hope you have understood this poem. Go through it, recite it in home. A few question answers are there that we will do in our note. And now let me just discuss the main points of the poem. So what happened? While walking, the speaker arrives at a place where two roads diverged in a yellow wood. That tells about the season also. And then the speaker evaluates the two paths. He tries to find which one is better for him. And then he also imagines, the speaker imagines that he will try to come back on the previous, the one which he had left. And then the road, symbolizes our life. The poet says that the path that we don't choose in our life is the road not taken. So here, the path that we have chosen is not the title. The path that we have not chosen is the title of the poem, The Road Not Taken. He also describes his feelings about that choice that he had left in the past. And the important message that the poet wants to give is that the choice that we make has an impact on our future. And if we make a wrong choice, we regret it. We cannot go back on it. So we must be wise while making choices. Okay, students, I hope you have understood. And now the rhyme scheme and the literary devices used. The rhyme scheme is A, B, A, A, B. And the literary devices that are used here are anaphora. Anaphora is when the same word is repeated in the beginning, and in the beginning of lines of 2, 3, and 4. Which word is repeated? In the second line, it's A. In the third line, it's A. And in the fourth line, it's, sorry, and. And is repeated in the beginning of lines 2, 3, and 4. And that is why we have anaphora here. And then alliteration, you all are aware about the alliteration. The one particular sound is repeated. So F sound is repeating, then though, that, the sound is repeating. And the third one is, third literary device is repetition, where the word is repeated. Two roads diverged in a wood. This sentence is repeated in stanzas 1 and 4. When the sentences are repeated, then it is called repetition, and when the words are repeated, it's called anaphora. I hope, students, you have liked the poem, and I hope you will be making the right choices in your life. Thank you so much.